And I looked at my partner and I said, we have to go now.
People would normally be driving up and down here with surfboards on top of their cars, ready to enjoy a day at the beach. But right now, it just looks like some sort of apocalypse. What makes this so different is that there are so many fires burning so close to residential areas.
All 29 fire departments in our county are not prepared for this type of widespread disaster.
California now under a state of emergency, with over 50,000 people forced to evacuate their homes or flee for their lives as fires burned across LA County.
We are in bumper-to-bumper traffic right now as hundreds of people try to get out. You can see flames here on both sides of the road.
This is an apocalyptic scene. This is the fire ripping through it. You can hear the crackling of the fire, the hissing of the gases. Firefighters help us to do anything.
The third out-of-control wildfire exploding overnight in the Los Angeles area. LA fire is stretched so thin right now.
Not out of danger.
Everything is catching fire here. Trash bins, rubs, trees, houses.
This is a day like Los Angeles has not seen before, and it's not even close to being over yet.
This isn't a story about what we lost in the fire. It's a story about what we're building from the ashes. On January 7th, I woke up to a text from my mother, and it was a news article, and I can't remember exactly what the headline was, but it was something to the effect of like, death and destruction is predicted in Los Angeles. And I kind of laughed it off. I ignored it for a little bit because it felt, just like so clickbaity. And then I finally was like, okay, sure, I'll give it a read. They were predicting really high winds. They were predicting really low humidity, which could contribute to some fires. Then they were predicting blackouts. And we had heard that the winds were going to come through, but we're used to Santa Ana winds in LA. Like, yeah, they come and go. It's always fine. But this felt different. This was predicting mass hurricane force winds in the city. And so it kind of caught me off guard of, oh, wow, this is real. So I started doing some like light preparations, right? My partner's car was on the street. I moved it into underground parking. I filled up my car with gas. And at that point in the morning, my biggest concern was power outages. So I charged our devices. I made sure that we had, flashlights and candles and everything. And that was kind of that. And the day was going on. I remember watching through our window, and throughout the day, like, we're watching this wind rip pieces off of our building. And along with that, we had record low humidities, and so fire risk was a problem. And I remember reading something earlier in the day that said that the fire department, I don't remember exactly, so please feel free to fact check me, but something to the effect of the fire department was basically like, we won't be able to fight fires in these conditions. So if a fire breaks out, like, essentially we can't help you. Halfway through the day, I was on the phone with my dad, and he asked me, is the Palisades fire anywhere near you? And I felt like a weird sense of relief in that moment, because there was this kind of like, oh, okay, the fire broke out. Like, the one fire we knew was going to come, it came, and it's not near us. Kind of like the box had been checked and we were in the clear. I was wrong. And then throughout the day, another fire popped up, and another fire popped up, and another fire popped up. And it became clear that this would be a multi-fire event. And I just remember watching throughout the day as more and more fires are coming, more and more fires are spreading. I'm getting more and more anxious, and I know the fire department has said there's nothing we can do. We can't fight these fires in this wind. So it's 5 p.m. and our city is now just surrounded by fires. There's literally fires in every single direction that we could go to leave. North, south, east, west, doesn't matter. And I remember the flip from that morning feeling like our biggest threat was a power outage and we should make sure that we could stay at home for a day or two and not need power, into we got to get out of here. So I'm starting to collect our documents and I'm starting to pack a bag. And then I saw the news article that the PCH was completely gridlocked with abandoned vehicles because the fire was moving faster than traffic could. And people were jumping out of their cars and fleeing from the fire on foot. And they were now bringing in bulldozers to clear the freeways so that emergency vehicles could get through. And I wanted to leave. Like, that for me was like, we have to go. I wanted to leave now. I wanted to get ahead of it because we are completely surrounded. And at this point, I don't know how to go to sleep for 8 hours. And think that we're going to be okay. Think that we're going to wake up the next morning, because it's gotten this bad in less than 8 hours. There were no fires 8 hours ago. And now there are fires. There are many, many fires. So I wanted to go. At this point, leaving was more dangerous than staying because the winds were still absolutely raging. It would have been driving through a hurricane. And we decided at this point there is no fire immediately threatening our building. The winds are hurricane force winds that feel unsafe to drive through. We're going to stay put. We're going to be ready to go at a moment's notice. And we're going to sleep in shifts. 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And one of us will sleep and one of us will keep watch. And then we got the news that the fire had started in Eaton Canyon. And I just looked at my partner and I said, we have to go. And 7 minutes later, we were in the car pulling out of the driveway. We had no idea that locking the door behind us that night would be the last time that we would see the home we were just beginning to build together. I had no idea that it was the beginning of a goodbye to a life that I have loved for so long. We spent the weeks that followed watching from a distance while our neighborhood burned to the ground, tracking the fallout like a heartbeat as 10 acres became 14,000 and dots on the map disappeared. We were some of the lucky ones. Our apartment was still standing, but the home that we loved had been destroyed. We said goodbye to our apartment the only way we could. Through FaceTimes and photographs from friends who were still on the ground. Packing by proxy. Grieving in still frames. People think LA is all palm trees and paparazzi. It's not. Not my LA. You see, my Los Angeles is more than a backdrop. It's the city that raised me, that made me who I am. It's fast friends and chosen family, the kind of love that doesn't need an explanation. It's all-day potlucks, it's late-night dance parties, it's park hangs that last way past sunset. It's long drives and late nights and laughing until you can't breathe with someone who you just met. It's running into a friend at the farmer's market and hugging like you have not seen each other in years, even if it's only been a few days. It's local theater, open mic nights, late night dinners after a show that has cracked you open in the best way. It's the long hikes that held me together when everything else was falling apart. It's the walks along the shore when I needed to cry, or think, or remember who I was. It's the waves that baptized every version of me that I have ever become. This city knows me. But leaving Los Angeles didn't just mean leaving my city or my community. It also meant saying goodbye to a career that I have been building my entire life. My dream was my compass, my constant, the thing that kept me tethered to myself when nothing else made sense. I didn't just work in LA, I became here, on dimly lit stages, in freezing cold audition rooms, in dressing room dance parties and rehearsal room breakthroughs and curtain calls that vibrated my entire chest. This city shaped me, not just as an artist, but as a human being. So when I left, it wasn't just the skyline in my rearview mirror. It was the dream that I had been chasing for my entire life. And I don't know who I am without it. In just a few short weeks, I lost my home, my city, my income, my career, my community, and with it all, my sense of purpose and belonging. Because it wasn't just the city that burned. It was my life as I knew it. The truth is, I was not okay. I was overwhelmed, dissociated, numb, trying to breathe through the panic and grief of losing everything. There were moments I wondered if I'd ever feel normal again, ever feel anything again. But underneath it all, this quiet voice kept reminding me, you've been here before. Not in this exact way, not to this extreme, but I've felt this kind of collapse before. And I made it through. So somewhere in the middle of all this wreckage, I decided to believe that maybe things weren't falling apart. Maybe they were falling into place. When the dust finally started to settle, I didn't feel ready to settle down. I didn't feel ready to launch into trying to rebuild the life that I had spent the past 16 years building, because I watched it go away in the blink of an eye. I literally watched it go up in flames. And so there was this part of me that didn't know how to trust that that wasn't going to happen again. And I guess you can't know that that's not going to happen again, right? That's the cycle of life. That's the cycle of these things, is that there's no way to know. And I just have to trust that if it does happen again, I'll figure it out. I didn't want to join the tens of thousands of displaced families who are now searching for housing in Los Angeles, not just because what it would do to the market, not just because of the predatory pricing that would happen, but it also just didn't feel morally right to take up space in that climate, to be literally taking a space from a family whose home burned down. I could not sit with it. Even if we found a place, it would feel so bad because there is probably someone who needed it more. And I definitely didn't know where else I wanted to be. It didn't feel right to just point to a city on a map and be like, okay, yep, that's the one. There wasn't anywhere else in the States that I really felt like was calling to me as a place to plant roots. And we were staying with family through all of this. We had evacuated and landed with family for a little bit, which was such a blessing to have and to be so welcomed and so supportive. And also, that is not what I wanted my long term to be. I didn't want to be 34 and living with my parents long term. I didn't want to be living in the city where I grew up. And so I didn't really know what was next. And that was hard. And my partner and I have both always dreamed of traveling for a couple of years. But anytime we sat down to talk about it, to run the numbers, to actually dream a little more concretely, we're like, oh, we can't make it work. There's no way. We can't afford that dream. It's just a dream in it. So it lived in this kind of someday fantasy space, right? And so suddenly we had nothing tying us down. We had no home to build. We had no rent to pay, no bills to pay, really. We had no in-person job to show up to. And so it felt like, well, if not that, then what? And if not now, then when? I don't think we will ever have an opportunity to do this as freely as we have right now. We are as untied down as we will ever be. God, I hope so. I hope that's true. So that's what we did. We got on a plane. When we first landed, it was still deep winter. And I know that people who have actually experienced deep winter will tell me that April 1st is not deep winter. Everything was gray and cold and dead and depressing. And I
thought, oh my God, we've made a huge mistake. I remember being in the Airbnb for the first couple of weeks, just heartbroken, thinking, what have we done? I hate it here. But now spring's starting to bloom, and the grass is coming up, and the flowers are opening, and there's leaves on the trees again. And it's given me so much hope, because it feels like this little quiet reminder that life goes on even through the freezes. That even in the chapters when things are cold and dark and gray and it feels like you will never see the sun again, there is life happening underneath the snow. So right now I'm taking life literally one step at a time. I'm focusing on healing. I'm focusing on rest and recovery and slowness and trying to let my body lead the way and tell me what it needs. Because there's a past version of me, a younger version of me, that would push through, that would be like, okay, we landed, now what? Onwards and upwards, what are we building? I have always had a plan, I've always had a vision, I've always known where I'm going and exactly how I'm gonna get there. And I don't right now. That is terrifying. And I'm trying to lean into it and just say, it's okay. It's okay that I don't know how long we're going to be traveling. It's okay that I don't know where we will be in 6 months or a year. It's okay that I don't know if or when or where we will ultimately land. It's okay to let this chapter be about learning how to be soft, trying to be soft with myself, trying to be soft with my partner, trying to be soft with my urge to build a new life. And I'm trying to learn how to be present, because I've really been feeling pulled, either living in the past or living in the future, but very rarely able to stay focused on this moment right now. I'm doing a lot of living for the future. I find myself living in someday, and someday we'll have a home again. Someday I'll be able to have a yard or a garden. I have this nesting urge that is coming out because I don't have those things. I don't have anything. But when you have nothing, you can build anything.
Sometimes life asks us to begin again, whether we're ready or not. And when that happens, it's easy to feel lost, easy to feel forgotten, like everything you built has crumbled around you, and now you're standing alone in the wreckage, wondering how anything could ever grow again. But maybe that's what beginnings are. Not clean slates, but soft, stubborn seeds buried deep beneath the snow. Life comes in seasons, and I have to trust that it won't be winter forever. Trust that the frost will melt, that the ground will thaw, and that somewhere underneath it all, things are already starting to bloom again. I'll be honest, I don't know where we go from here, and I'm still learning how to be okay with that. For now, I'm taking it one step at a time. So if you're finding yourself standing all alone, looking down at the ashes of a life that you worked so hard to build, I hope this space feels like a deep breath. I hope it reminds you that you are not behind. This is only the beginning. The rest, we'll figure it out together.